Something quite interesting has popped up. A YouTuber by the name of Anton Petrov on December 20th, 2017 made a video entitled Jupiter Was Once a Terrestrial Planet. I noticed that and I thought to myself, well, that's backwards, you know. Let me see what's going on here. And he's stating work done by a man named by John Chambers, who published a paper onto the archive on October 9th of last year, of 2017, entitled Steam Worlds, Atmospheric Structure and Critical Mass of Planets Accreting Icy Pebbles. And he has here in the beginning of the abstract, in the core accretion model, gas giant planets first form a solid core, which then accretes gas from a protoplanetary disk when the core exceeds a critical mass. Here we model the atmosphere of a core that grows by accreting ice-rich pebbles. And clearly it's backwards, and I'll explain why. Establishment, they sort of have a hive mind. They don't look outside of their in-group, mentality, outside of their education, is to look for answers that, all are alternative because they believe they're on the right track. And unfortunately, that leads them to sweeping conclusions that are not observed in reality. They're not actually observed. He has pebbles clumping together in this direction. So you have your timeline of the pebbles, and then they move, and they clump together, and they clump together. Then it becomes a water world, and then it becomes a massive Jupiter-sized object. So when he looks at Jupiter, he says, well, that was once a bunch of pebbles that weren't clumped together yet. Which I don't think is very good reasoning. What actually happens is you have a young star, which is really big and hot and bright. I'm not going to go over star formation, but we're just going to start with a star fully formed. So it starts really big and hot and bright, and then it clumps together the material in its center. Then the center of the star is where accretion happens. And then the core grows, and the atmosphere thins as well, eventually becoming a Jupiter. And then as it continuously loses its atmosphere, then it becomes a water world, when all the hydrogen and oxygen have combined together to make the water. You just don't form water in outer space from pebbles clumping together. You actually need lots of hydrogen and oxygen to form, and to combine them together takes a shitload of energy and gravitation. That doesn't exist with just pebbles. And then eventually the water world dissipates, becomes an Earth-like object, and eventually loses its oceans and atmosphere and becomes something like Venus when the CO2 can't be reabsorbed back into the ocean. It gets really hot on the surface, sterilizes everything, all the life dies, the internal motion ceases, the magnetic field weakens considerably to where it can't protect the life either, and then it becomes a dead world like Mars. And then eventually, once the remaining atmosphere dissipates away, then it becomes something like Mercury, which is the core of an ancient dead star vastly older than the Earth. And I wanted to go over this because I don't want to say it violates, but it doesn't have a very solid foundation from reasoning alone. And that is because they ignore the conservation of mass. In order to make something really massive in outer space that has been losing mass, you can't make things bigger. So they got it backwards. In order to make something like the Earth, it had to have started off a lot more massive. And to create something like Jupiter, it also had to start more massive as well, because stars are observed to be losing mass. And I review that in the mass loss principle. I have here dated January 12th, 2016, almost 2 years ago. Basically, it says, as stars evolve, cool, and die, they lose mass. That's all stars, Jupiter, Earth, even, you know, dead ones, because they lose mass to impacts and irradiation and the rocks breaking apart. But anyways, I just wanted to review that. If you guys want to do this on your own to model what this theory might look like, go to it's like a game you can buy. It's called Universe Sandbox 2. But I don't know if they'll allow you to have the star lose mass slowly as it, you know, orbits another star. And I don't know how advanced the algorithms and the processes are that can, you know, probably make that happen. But that's that. Anyways, basically, it's just backwards. Establishment science has it backwards. They have small things clumping together over time, making really, really, really big things without a gravitational field, without heat, without the necessary materials to make the chemicals to begin with. When in reality, they have it backwards. It starts out with a star being born in a really violent, energetic event, maybe like a Z-pinch or something similar. And then what happens is that it expands to start to dissipate all that heat away. It becomes really, really big. And then it starts collapsing, cooling, and contracting, losing its atmosphere, losing its mass, and creating the tiny little ball in the center called the planet. And we see various stages of this process in all the exoplanets, you know, Astrons, and all the Kepler observations and all the Hubble observations. But I wonder when they're gonna straighten it out and flip it, you know, to where it makes sense. That establishment science, they have to do a 180 on their ideas. And I don't know if that's going to happen because they're very institutionalized. And as we all know, institutions, they don't like change. They like things to remain the same forever because, you know, you can't rock the boat. It upsets people's careers, and, you know, it's not a lot of fun. All right, y'all, take it easy.